I pray for a glimpse of House of the Dragon, but HBO shows me only snow. A sequel series to Game of Thrones was always a question of when, not if. We live in an era of sequels, requels, and cinematic universes. That HBO would one day return to the Six Kingdoms was always inevitable. But a sequel series based solely around the adventures of Jon Snow is something I could have never anticipated. And I know no one has asked me, but to be honest, I don't want it. I never have. And I'm surprised that Jon Snow wants it. Like literally, this is Kit Harington's idea. This is his brainchild. Sure, he was one of the three major characters in the show's ensemble alongside Tyrion Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen, but by the end of season 8, his character seemed to be emotionally and physically exhausted. We've seen him do just about everything a character in this series can do. His ending might not have pleased a lot of people, but exile will be a vacation, not punishment, after all that he endured. Of course, there are always new and exciting ways you can abuse your characters. Have any of you read Robin Hobb's books, the Farseer trilogy? Like, my god, just when you think things can't get worse for Fitzchivalry, that he's reached rock bottom, Robin Hobb lets you know that there are deeper levels of hell. Come to think of it, Fitzchivalry has a lot in common with Jon Snow. They're both bastards with wolf companions. Their fathers were both princes, well loved by the common folk, and they were heir to the throne, but they were also very melancholic men. And then there's the whole Six Duchies, Six Kingdoms thing. And both books mention the others and dragons. And then there's... Okay, so I'll save the comparisons for another video. I still haven't gotten to the Fitz the Fool books. So back to the other bastard we were talking about, Jon Snow. Jon's story can continue, but I'm not sure if now is the time. It's been less than 5 years since Game of Thrones ended. Unless there's a significant time jump, Westeros would still be reeling from the War of Five Kings, the war with the others, and the Second Targaryen conquest. Or rather, the attempt at conquest. I would like to revisit Westeros, of course, but later, much later than this. I feel like things are being rushed. I had hoped for 5 to 10 years so the other spin-off shows could ripen before we came back to the Six Kingdoms. I never expected HBO would do this so fast. It's quite vexing. I understand this show might not ever happen, and if it does, it would still be a few more years if it ever comes out. There could even be a time jump like I suggested. However, it still feels too soon. I have not had the time to properly miss Game of Thrones, and now we're already moving on to sequels. These sequel projects, like Obi-Wan for example, always have this air of nostalgia to them. Not enough time has passed for Game of Thrones to build that. And during the years it's been off the air, fans have not come together to talk about how much they've enjoyed the show, share their experiences, look back fondly over the last 10 years of watching it. No, they've been stewing in misery because people have decided that they're not going to forgive Dan and David for what they've done, for their crimes. If you're someone like myself who had problems with later seasons, but overall you still enjoyed Game of Thrones, you can't really have a serious discussion about even the good moments without someone interjecting to tell you how much that moment didn't matter in the end, how much it was wasted, and how D&D just ruined everything. So these past couple of years, it hasn't been the best being part of the Game of Thrones fandom. So let's put some space between Game of Thrones and any other show set in its future. Make as many prequels and other spin-offs as you want, but let the actors from the main show grow older. Let Kit Harington get some lines in his face, a few wrinkles, maybe some gray hairs, and once he's grizzly enough, then bring him back for the Snow Show. George R.R. Martin has given this show his blessing. He's working on it just as much as he's working on all the other HBO spin-offs. He says he's known about it for quite some time now. It's just that he couldn't talk about it due to legal obligations. But hold on 1 second. You mean to tell me this man has the time to work on the sequel series to the adaptation of the book series he has yet to complete? The first thing I notice when I look at George R.R. Martin, it's not the sailor hat, it's not the glasses, it's not the quirky suspenders, it's the audacity. Because how dare you? How much input could he actually be giving if his attention is being spread across various other projects, including his own? And I'm not sure I want to watch another show that's just based off his vibes. You know, emails, Zoom meetings where they sit back and ask Martin, hey, what's your opinion on this character or this plot decision? I would rather Martin write an actual book, finish the one he's working on, and then HBO buy that and develop that into a TV show. Remember when Steven Spielberg wanted to do a sequel to Jurassic Park, but there was no novel to adapt, so he kidnapped Michael Crichton, chained him in his basement, and forced him to write The Lost World? Okay, so that didn't happen, but he did highly encourage Michael Crichton to write that book so he would have something to work with when he made the sequel. I wish HBO had the power to do the same thing to Martin. Highly encourage him to finish The Winds of Winter. So the next thing that's stopping me from being really excited about this Snow Show is less about Jon Snow and more about the people hoping that this show will fix season 8. Many felt that Jon Snow did not get the ending that he deserved, even though deserved has nothing to do with anything. While there's no changing the past, this new show might be a chance for HBO to make amends with a dissatisfied audience. Because if Jon Snow comes back, then so can many other characters. You know, we can resurrect Dany and she can have a redemption arc where she's forgiven for destroying King's Landing, and then she can go back to being a badass dragon riding queen. We can do the Bran is evil storyline that people really wanted. You know, where we find out that he's been controlled by the three-eyed raven this whole time and he's been a vessel for evil. We can bring back the others and maybe even a new Night King so that Jon Snow can set his sword on fire and the two can have an epic duel and Jon Snow can kill him as he should have in the first place. Essentially, remake season 8. As I said earlier, I wasn't completely happy with how Game of Thrones ended, but I don't want a sequel series trying to correct things. I don't want a remake. HBO needs to stick to the storytelling choices that were made and people need to move on. Because when a show tries to change things in response to negative audience reactions, but they're doing it in a not so genuine way, you can feel that.
Forgive my sister. What she lacks in diplomacy, she
Do
makes...
shut up, dear. Anything from you? No. Good. Let the grown women speak.
If your sole interest in this show is how it can fix things, be aware that things can always get worse in the attempt.
You are a Palpatine.
And I'm not interested in a show that's all about fan service and wish fulfillment. That's just not what this series has been about. Now, one last thing which is very strange to me. I've seen some reactions from people saying things like, this must be proof that Kit Harington is still upset with Dan and David with how they treated Jon Snow in the end, and this project is all about him giving Jon his true ending. The conspiracy theories and people projecting their feelings onto these actors, it's very weird behavior, not gonna lie. It's not normal. I know for a lot of people, it's F Dan and David full stop. Anything negative said about them, they're gonna push that narrative forward, whether they believe it or not. Whether it's the truth or not, because the overall sentiment is Dan and David deserve whatever's thrown at them. It does not matter what it is, they deserve it. I know me trying to be rational and point out how messed up that is not going to win me any favors. However, I think we can criticize Dan and David without putting words into other people's mouths. Because Kit Harington has already told us how he feels about the makings of the final season of Game of Thrones. And here are his words right here. Was that harsh and unnecessary? I don't know. He wasn't talking to me. I don't fit the description of the type of person he's talking about in this interview, so I don't feel offended by his words. But yeah, those are his thoughts on the final season. So if you think that this Snow show is just his passive aggressive way of getting back at Dan and David, no. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Snow show, which is about to join a bunch of other Game of Thrones spinoffs. I still don't know how I feel about a GOT cinematic universe. Let me know your thoughts on this Jon Snow spinoff in the comments. Are you for it or against it? What kind of plot do you think it might have? Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to turn on notifications. You want notifications turned on because I have several Jon Snow videos coming. I have a video coming about his relationship with Rhaegal. I have another video about his potential relationship with Drogon if this series moves forward. I also have a video about why I think his Targaryen parentage actually mattered in the end. I know a lot of people said that Jon Snow was Targaryen for no reason. I disagree. Even though he didn't become king, being a Targaryen is very important to who he is as a person. And several other Jon Snow videos as well. It's going to be a lot of Snow content coming, lots of Snow coming downhill, and you're going to want to be there to catch that snowball. As always, I thank you all for watching, and I will see you all for the next one.